your wonderful room set up for us. I, for one, appreciate it. As soon as Casey gets in here, I think we're ready to start. Do you see Jill coming in the door? Okay, I just put a cough drop in my mouth, I hope. So, Dean, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're ready to, well, okay. Are we ready to go? That's okay. Okay, Kurt, I think we're ready.
All righty.
Thank you. So Dean, I received your email on the agenda items.
Yes, ma'am.
Not a, it came in about, what, about 11:30, 11:40, and
Yes.
I saw it about 12:30 or so, 12:45. And so we put together between the email that Dean sent and I responded to, which I think everyone at the table received a copy of if you haven't seen it yet. It's in your email. But quickly put together an agenda. As we had discussed last time, it was going to be very last minute. So our agenda for today is to go through the possible TA items for the language that did not have any revised language or proposed language from either the city or the IAFF. So we'll do that first. And then Dean proposed that we go through the language items that the city had proposed, just changing the word union to IAFF. Second, I haven't quite identified all of those, so we may have to have Casey scroll through and work on those. And then we'll have Casey today, if we're looking at some TA items and can actually get there, that maybe we can date and take, on the one I sent you guys, I put PTA for possible TA. Maybe we can remove that P, put a date on it, and on anything that we want to at least tentatively move ahead and believe we have some agreement on. Does that sound okay with you, Dean?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Great.
I think we dispensed with the opening statement. Is that okay with you? Okay. And do you have any materials for exchange?
We don't. Do you feel like you have everything that you've asked for to reference?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
At the last meeting, we had discussed the IAFF providing the research that they had done for the cost of boots and other work items, clothing items. And we also discussed having the IAFF provide us with the information that they used for the funeral benefit proposal. And Dean gave those to me after the meeting, and I scanned them and sent them to the rest of the team, the city team. So is everybody comfortable with that, Tony and Sean? Okay. Oh, one thing, let me go back to, Tony talked to me earlier today, and she indicated that she needs to leave at 2 o'clock today. So Tom's not present, but Tony needs to leave at 2.
Yes, ma'am.
We had not previously stated that, so
okay.
I apologize.
No, understood.
And thank you. Do you need anything else? Is that good? Okay. And Sean, I know there was one, we were not gonna, there was one other item that we're gonna provide next Tuesday at the meeting then, that Sean has on his list. Does that take care of everything on materials? Okay. We don't have any materials other than next Tuesday's report. Okay. I don't think we have any old business. We finished up the last meeting, unless you can think of some.
Good.
That, or maybe all of it now is old business, but I put it down as new business. I'm not a pro on that agenda stuff. So we're down under number 4, new business, with looking at the possible TAs. And
Yes. So Laura, as we get into these tentative agreements, we had to mention a few things here with the timeline, and we can address it specifically when we set the agenda for the next meeting. But we just want to remind both sides here that we have to have a contract ratified by the membership prior to July 1.
Okay,
And so our schedule, as it looks, since we just finished hearing proposals at the last meeting, has pushed us really tight, with, approximately 60-plus proposals. It's a lot to go through, and it's going to be even more to discuss now during this tentative agreement portion. To fit that in by July 1st, to be able to call a special meeting, get everyone in and reviewing all of those items, because it'll just take a lot of time to review those with the membership. We're wanting a goal of, we said June 28th. Right now, we have negotiations scheduled for June 29th and July 1st, with July 1st being the date that we really need to come to an agreement. There won't be a way for us to have a meeting between the 29th and the 1st, if we go that far. And if we do have a meeting and have a vote, but we still have things on the table for the 29th, it won't be conclusive. And so we're hoping to have this, really our last meeting be the 22nd, so that 27th.
2/7, 27?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So really what that does is it removes the 29th. It doesn't mean we take that off our calendars.
Okay.
But, for the purpose of having a meeting to discuss the contract and hold a vote, we need to do that prior to July 1 to avoid impasse.
Okay. I think the city would like to finish sooner than later if we could possibly get through stuff. Tony,
Okay.
did you have a statement on that?
So you don't have the ability to call meetings, you have to have regularly set up meetings to?
No, ma'am. It would be a called meeting. There's a certain amount of notice that has to be provided. But to try to do that in a one-day window isn't going to work. So.
Do you mind if I ask how much notice you need?
We need 7 days' notice.
Okay. When we discussed the calendar at the beginning, we had the 29th identified, at least I did on my calendar, it's highlighted. But and you seem to agree to that, but
Yes, ma'am.
just recently you've come to decide that we now have to be concluded by the 27th?
The 29th was tentative.
Oh, okay,
I mean, according to the agenda.
okay.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you need to give 7 days' notice to your membership in order to have a meeting. So you would need to give notice by June 20th to have a meeting by the 27th, or June 21st to have a meeting on the 28th, or 9th or 30th, whatever with that. But you're still open that if we need to have meeting time on the 27th, we can. Are you wanting to schedule this meeting ahead of time out, so you have your 7 days out?
When you say meeting,
Oh,
a
are you
special
wanting
meeting
to-
with the membership?
Yeah, are you
Yes,
wanting to put it on the calendar?
Obviously, when people have more notice, that they're better able to make arrangements to attend to something. So if we had greater than 7 days, that would be ideal. We're really just asking to that tentative date of the 29th, to remove that and look at the last date be as the 27th, but prior to July 1st.
Well, this is my thought on it without asking the rest of the group. My thought is that we've had this as tentative for quite a while. I think all of us would like to finish up before impasse if possible. So I think the city is committed to making every possible effort to have things finished, if at all, if we can, and making good use of our meeting time here so that we can be finished prior to that date. I hesitate at this time to take it off the calendar since it's been here as a tentative time, unless there is an alternate date that we all agree to put on the calendar so that we have the same number of working days that we've been looking at. Do you have any other proposed alternate date that we might consider?
Yes, ma'am. Like we mentioned before, we chose Z-shift days. I mean, we recommended those so that we didn't impact any kind of overtime. But Y-shift day would work also, because only one of us is on that shift.
And what day would you propose that to be?
Well, if we look ahead at the calendar right now, we have several options, 17, 19, 24, 26. That's without looking at personal calendars,
17, 19,
24, 26.
okay.
Are those the right days on this calendar?
The red
Is
days.
that the?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I do. Well, what I would like to do is, let's continue on with our agenda a little
Okay.
bit, and then when we, if there's a point where we caucus,
Mhm.
that I speak with the city team about their availability on these dates.
Okay.
And
We'll
we
do
can
the same.
also check
Yes.
with Bobby and find out what
Okay.
Tom's availability is.
Okay.
And then circle back around at that when we get down to 4C. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Mhm.
So what I think I'm hearing is that you all need to have the contract ratified by your membership prior to the July 1st impasse date. Is that what the ultimate thing is?
Okay.
Is that how we've done it in the past?
That it's ratified?
Yeah, before that July 1 date, I thought that we had tentative agreement and then that.
Well, I think we've done
I-
it both
and
ways.
To be honest, I think
Mhm.
I'm confusing it with the LPOA. So I'm not sure how we've done it with this group in the past, but I was just curious.
I think we can agree to that, Lori. We can still have that July 1 date, but then rather than going to impasse, it could be pending the vote of a membership.
Okay.
If it didn't receive that, we could go to impasse, or if we couldn't come to an agreement for something to even present to them, then it could go to impasse.
What I would like to do before
Mhm.
I agree to
Mhm.
any of these changes, or what we
Mhm.
might do on July 1st, is I depend on Tony to be able
Okay.
to look at the resolution and give me advice on what we're able to do and not to do. Now, I only have 15 minutes to get her advice yet today.
Okay.
So I don't know if we want to caucus until,
Mhm.
for 10 minutes, or if Tony, you'd feel more comfortable having time to research it a little bit before we make any statements regarding July 1st and what we need to do. I'm comfortable with changing meeting dates if it works on everybody's calendar,
Mhm.
but I'm not comfortable in saying what we might do
Mhm.
regarding your ratification and what we do before and after impasse until I can have a longer conversation with Tony.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's June 13th, and I think it might be helpful if you wrote what your proposal is, and then forwarded it to Lori, and then that will help us evaluate it against the resolution.
Our
Because-
proposal to not include June 29th as a meeting date?
Well, you were talking about whether there would be tentative agreement or a final agreement before a certain
Mhm.
date. And you had a little discussion there, and you said you were fine with that, so if you could just articulate that, that would be helpful.
Okay. Well, like this, okay.
So we can, under 4C, have a discussion about changing the meeting date from the 29th to some other date.
Okay.
But as far as where we need to be by July 1st,
Mhm.
if you could articulate anything short of having it ratified and your signature on it, and Tom's signature on it, anything short of having that by July
Tom's
1st.
signature isn't on it, the mayor's signature is, and that.
Mayor's.
I mean, so that's not gonna happen by July 1 either. We don't have another commission meeting after June 18th until July 2nd, so.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I
So-
mean, we need
so-
to contemplate all of those
So-
issues, I think.
Okay, so we will write down what we expect by July 1st, and you can propose to us what you would expect to have done by July 1st. To avoid impasse.
Mhm.
And we can exchange that so that we can look at that against the resolution to make sure that we're staying in compliance. And we can make that decision, then I'll make that as one of the agenda items on the 18th, so we'll know well ahead of time what expectations are for July 1st. Does that sound fair? Or not, Tony? Okay, so let us know
Okay.
what your expectation is, and we'll have Casey's just articulated that the city commission signature, we can't have a signature by the mayor until
Gotcha.
after July, what did you say?
Second?
Until after July 2nd. So I think that will be our statement, is that if we can't take it to the mayor in 2 days or by next Tuesday, then it'll likely be July 2nd when it's on, would be the earliest agenda time for that.
Okay.
But we can talk about what expectations are. Is that a fair
Absolutely.
agenda item?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so shall we move to 4A? In that, to talk about the TA items, this, as I mentioned at the end of the last meeting, I went and moved all those things over on the document that I emailed out last, when did we meet? Tuesday? So Tuesday evening, I think, I emailed out a document that had all of that moved over into the right-hand side. The city is comfortable with just in a global overall statement that we're ready to TA all of the items that were moved over on that document that I emailed out, and on the one that's being displayed.
I don't know if this is the right one. It wasn't pulled up. I just found this one, but.
What is it, what's the date at the top?
6/13?
Okay, it should be there.
Okay.
Everything should be there, and scroll down to, I wonder what the first item is.
Where you're referring to only items that the city of Louisville had
Mm-hmm.
proposed and wish to.
Mm-hmm. And I had moved those over, as we discussed at the end of the last meeting, and emailed those out Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And they're all, let me find an example here.
I think first one, I just had it here. Where'd it go?
You moved them over to which column?
To the right hand, the far right
Far
column.
right. Okay, that's what I thought you meant. I'm just.
It should say PTA near the top.
I think 8.4.3 is one, PTA
On what page?
19.
Oh, you know what? I have an old version, so you're gonna have to tell me. I didn't print off a new one for myself.
So I think it's
Wonder I
up
can't
here.
find it.
Is that an example, Lori, on the screen there where it says PTA and then section 8.4.3?
Mm-hmm. So I moved them all over like that, put that PTA at the top on the copies that I emailed out to you. And the city is prepared to say, every single one of those, we're ready to TA if you are, and don't need to go through them individually. And Casey, what I would ask you is whatever we agree on here, that you remove the letter P and you
Mhm.
put today's date next to the TA.
Okay.
And we can
Happy
move
to.
on through.
Do you do that?
So you said we're looking at 8.4.3 right now?
I have made a proposal to TA all of them that are in the document that I emailed out, and I have Casey date them.
Okay.
And
These are the ones
Dean's,
that are
it looks as if
PTA.
Dean's reviewing some of those, so we'll wait until he has an opportunity.
Just the ones that are marked PTA only.
Right, correct. only the ones marked PTA in the far right column.
What was your last one?
I am at 9.4.5. Make sure there's no-
I'm sorry, would it be all right if Chief Green stepped away from the table for a moment to address an issue within the organization that needs to be handled right away?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Would it be helpful to caucus for a little bit, Dean?
Yes, ma'am, so
I don't
I'm
wanna
looking at
hurry
the
you if
real-
you need to.
No, a question though about it. So I'm noticing, I'll just give an example.
Okay,
Since I'm on this page right here, there may have been some before. Article 10 with health and safety, is saying there aren't any changes, but there will be the change from union to IAFF. Still has that PTA. Are we looking at PTAing those things as well right now?
which number? I'm sorry, I didn't print
For
off the new
example,
document.
Article 10, Section 10.1. It's just an example.
For the scrolling.
That's page 53.
Just got there at the exact same time.
Mhm.
So for
You know what?
example, when you see that with, I'm sorry.
I think I'm going to have to ask for a caucus or a quick recess so I can speak with Chief Green.
Yes, ma'am.
May we do that?
Absolutely.
And then let's break for 10 minutes. Well, how long? 20? 20 minutes? I am sorry.
No, ma'am.
This
We
is-
totally understand. We'll go downstairs and look at these a little closer. We may have
Okay.
some questions.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. I apologize.
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
Kurt, I think we're ready. Thank you. Thank you for giving me that time.
No,
That was very helpful. Okay, you were in mid-sentence when I interrupted you. I'll let you back up and
that's
start
okay.
over.
We've
Okay.
answered our question, and we appreciate the patience to look through these. So there are two sections that we feel like need to be separated
Okay,
from,
okay, and what would
Sorry.
those be?
so section 10.1.1, it's a health and safety,
Okay,
and, sorry, I skipped over one, but that's okay.
that's okay.
It actually mentions, changing union to IAFF, so it should be in the next group.
Oh, in the
of-
other group, okay,
Next group of proposals we discuss. And then section 9.224, voluntary demotion. This one references that appendix. And we want the discussion
Talk
about
about it,
anything
okay.
that's being moved to an appendix to be separate.
okay. I'm good with that. I only
Okay.
put it in there because we had it highlighted in
No, I
yellow last time, so I'm
Totally
fine
understand,
with
this
that.
is, we're just trying to organize it in a way that makes sense to us, so.
That's fine. Okay, so with the exception on this form of sections 9.24 and sections 10.1.1, are you comfortable with doing a TA today for all of those that are marked PTA?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
Look at that.
That was great. Okay, Casey,
Put it
we'll
in
let
the
you run through those and date them. Is
So,
that, or do you want to date?
9.2.4. No, 9.24.
9.24 is, we're
Is-
removing that one
No.
for
We're-
further discussion?
Yeah, so it's not TA, so it stays a PTA.
Correct.
And 10.1.1.
Stays
Okay.
PTA. All the rest of them go to TA with today's date. Excellent, thank you.
So this one stays. And just as an example, here's 10.1.3, so I'm changing it to TA 6/13/19. Whoops. Like that. Does that work for everybody? See what I did there?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's the now tentatively agreed upon language for the contract for section 10.1.3.
Okay,
Okay.
and we'll do that on all of those
I'll do that
sections,
on-
save the
I'm gonna
document
scroll and do it as we go.
while we're talking?
Yeah.
Okay,
If that's acceptable to everyone.
okay. So our next agenda item is you had indicated that you would like to speak about those sections where the city had proposed language just to change union to IAFF.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
if we're okay with Casey making those adjustments, we can
Yes, ma'am.
continue
And,
on.
if our assistant city manager needs us to pause so she can listen to something that's being said, we're sensitive to that.
I
Okay.
appreciate that, but you can keep going. I'll
Okay.
quit if I,
I hear you. So, these do not have a PTA or TA next to, in the far right column, Lori, if that's correct.
Correct.
I'm reading that
It-
correctly.
Yes,
So the city proposes to globally replace the word union with employee organization or IAFF. And if I remember correctly, IAFF Local 1596 was also an option.
yes,
And
that would
so
be fine.
That is what we would prefer, is to globally
Okay.
replace union with IAFF Local 1596.
Okay, that's acceptable.
Okay.
So, look, IAFF local 1596 will be the text that we'll use throughout. I did notice, and teach me not to print off a new copy for myself, but I did notice when I was going through and looking at all of those and looking at and preparing for today, that there was one more union that I found in some text, and I think I highlighted it in the city column, highlighted it
Okay.
with that, so I'll go back through, or Casey will go back through, we'll go back through and move those over as a TA And we will replace the word union with IAF Local 1596, and then move them over to the right-hand column as a TA. And if we don't get that done at this meeting, I'll do it after the meeting and send it out to us. Does that sound okay?
Here in the grid on the very first row is the city's proposal, so now I've added TA 61319, the word union will be replaced with IAFF Local 1596. And then do I need to
Yes.
say throughout the entire agreement or something like that? Or
That would be good.
I think you used the word, somebody used the word globally, but
Oh,
Yes.
do you prefer that?
I don't.
Well, that's just, I only read the city, the proposed language in the,
Uh-huh.
or the proposal.
Mhm.
I'm there in the middle, said global, that's the only reason I said it. So.
Okay.
Must have been me one day.
How about that?
There we go.
Will be replaced with.
There. And if Casey does that during the meeting, that's fine. If not, I'll do it after the meeting and send it out to us. Does that sound okay?
Appreciated.
Awesome.
Okay.
Look at that. We're cooking with gas.
Yeah. Okay, well, that brings us down to setting our next agenda item. And so where would you like to go next, or have you had any thoughts on that?
Well, we do have some thoughts,
Mhm.
but does the city have a preference for which things to talk about?
We did have a discussion between Tuesday and today on what we referred to last time as low-hanging fruit.
Mhm.
Things that we did not feel like, at least from our perspective, were all that far off,
Mhm.
and that we could start going through those. I would be very interested in hearing what your list is
Okay.
on that,
Well,
so,
we have a question then.
Okay.
So, the beginning of this process, the city had some proposals that were simply a request to discuss, kind of receive some direction for what the actual proposal would be. After having completed that, are there any that the city would prefer to remove, or in the interest of time, or having, the exchange of information, that wouldn't, is no longer on the table?
I would need to go through the document line by line, but
Okay.
I think there were one or two in there, and I would need to find them,
Okay.
that when we did not put any city proposed language, contract language.
Mhm.
And so as we go through that,
Okay.
I'm sure that was one that would be on our list.
Mhm.
Do you have a list that you've thought of, or a draft in your heads, on a piece of paper?
Of proposals that the city would remove?
That might be low-hanging fruit in your mind,
That we could agree on.
that we could agree on?
Items that we vote towards.
Because my thought is, even if we don't have it printed up on the agenda, if you have a list and we've gone through and thought about what that list is, if we could just find any of them that are on both of our lists and hit those and see if they are really low-hanging fruit,
Uh-huh.
have.
Well,
have
having,
you thought about that?
only heard the city's proposals completely as of last meeting 2 days ago, it's a lot, there's a lot to look at. And so they don't seem to match up to anything that we have. R6 matched with the city's proposals. So is that what you mean, like the common ground
Or
of proposals?
Or things that from, based on the conversation
Mhm.
that we've had at the table, that the city did not think they were too far off.
Okay.
And we've had some discussion on things that might be okay on our end, and are ready to bring that back to you. But I would really like to do that as a combined
Mhm.
effort. If you know which ones you think might be that way, and I realize a lot of it's the proposed language, contract language that the city proposed, but I think I emailed that document out somewhere around the 5th or the 6th, and all our language has been in there for that period of time.
Mhm.
There are some things that I think we might be able to discuss quickly and come to terms on,
Okay.
but I was hopeful that you would have some thoughts on that too, on any of
Okay.
those sections that might be
Mhm.
not this far off, but this far
Mhm.
off,
Mhm.
that we might be worth our time to discuss first.
Close?
So you want a list of things that,
Or at
your
least,
proposals that we can agree to, or
yes, or,
discussion that we felt like
or at least a list in front of you, that when I say, we think this one is easy enough, is that on your list? Yes, no. And if
Okay.
it's on your list and it's on our list, then let's talk about it. But if it's not on one or the other,
Mhm.
then it might be something that we're further apart on, and we should save that for the next discussion. We were just
Mhm.
hopeful that with the ones that are right here,
Mhm.
and if they're on both of our lists, we might be able to come to pretty quickly.
Okay.
And I don't know if you have that list in mind. I can tell you the city has a list in mind.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, Laura, our intent is to be prepared. We review proposals, have a position, or at least a starting point for for the discussion. But we don't have a complete list of things that we think we're close on, because we really only had the one day to look, and 3 of us were on duty for that.
Okay.
Otherwise, we definitely would have had that. So, we could, we're willing to start, but we don't have a list to give you right now.
Okay.
Of those proposals that we think are close.
Because we haven't, oh,
And just
Okay.
real quick, just a side note, the
Mhm.
conference room downstairs was being used.
I
So-
am
So we
sorry.
did we caucused outside, but it may still be used, so if we caucus any more today, we just want to let you know that if there's another room we could use, or we'll just go outside, but
No, we definitely
to
want to
make a
give
list,
you a
it
room.
could, we didn't have the Wi-Fi, so to make a list, just
Okay.
just a couple of,
I'm happy
more
to
tedious.
go down and make sure that the room is empty.
I'll send an email right now.
We'll send an email right now. I understand that was very nice of you
We
to meet in the
understand
other room, but.
people were doing work, and we get it, so.
And it might be a situation that if we knock on the door and there's people in there, that they can, some people just go in because it's empty and they sit there for a little bit and have, whatever short meeting they want to have, but we have reserved all of those,
Okay.
so, they'll make room for us.
Probably help in those
Yeah.
circumstances too.
Be sure and let me know on that, and even if we're caucusing, knock on the door and let me know, because I'm more than happy to
Well, it
make
was
that
just a
call.
unique set of circumstances, this
I
last
agree.
caucus, so that's okay, we were able to adapt, but,
Okay, thank you,
Um,
but we definitely want to have a space for you.
okay.
If we caucus again today, should we just send somebody down there with them just to make sure?
Yeah, I can do
Or they can have this room and we can go down there.
that's true.
Okay.
Okay, so moving forward, I can, shall we start at the beginning and just see if there are low-hanging fruit in your eyes? And I'll need to pull out a list. So I have some idea. These are the things that I was thinking of. And you can say yay, nay. That's- Is that, what do you guys think?
Or do they need time to go
Do you want time to,
to review what they think might be that?
Yes. Okay, the team is requesting a caucus.
okay, that sounds good. How long
So-
would you like?
So we can go through this and try to create at least a quick list, something within today's time frame. So
That sounds good.
15 minutes,
Sure.
okay.
So reconvene, we'll try and be back out this time at 10:10.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Um,
I'll walk downstairs with you.
Well, why
and
don't we just go down there?
We will go
and-
downstairs and
That
you
way.
can have the room in here. well, oh, are we ready? Are we ready? Is everyone ready? Kurt, I think we're ready. So while we were downstairs, Casey took the document downstairs and started doing the marking over the TAs. And you came up with one where we had that green one there, I think was it. That we wanted to point out and see if you agreed with. That one right there.
So section 8.11.2.1, and I'm on page, what page is it, 26?
811 point,
2.1 about
Two.
health insurance.
okay.
So the existing language said, the city shall provide health insurance to employees in the bargaining unit. So this was one where we are proposing to insert members of IAFF Local 1596. But if that's not okay, our original proposed language still included the employees in the bargaining unit, but we just thought when we were in there, we would throw that one in there and clean it up. If that's not acceptable, we can leave it as employees in the bargaining unit. It just seemed like it was along the lines of cleanup, but
Question on clarification, so if the employee is not a member of the local, then,
then they
Because
would be a
we-
city employee, right?
yeah, because we could, or maybe we do have, people that we represent, so the firefighter, engineer, lieutenants, that may or may not be members of the local.
Okay, so employees of the bargaining unit might be better. We're fine with leaving it out. We just thought,
I don't
They
see
should
how
be,
they're,
too.
well, I guess, wouldn't it
They're
be the
members.
same? If they're not a member of the, if they're not a member, are they an employee in the bargaining unit?
Yeah,
You're, because you're
That's true.
bargaining on behalf of those
those
positions?
positions.
Okay.
But they may not necessarily be a member of our local.
well, we'll just leave it then.
I'll remove the highlight.
So does
Okay,
that
so
look good?
that was one.
Okay, does that look good to everybody?
Oh,
Real quick.
sorry.
Let's just read it real quick.
The city shall provide health insurance to employees in the bargaining unit under such premium requirements. I think that's word for word exactly the way it is now.
Okay,
Okay,
no changes.
sorry. False alarm. Oh, that was a bad pun. There was one other. This was a separate cleanup item, and we may wanna come back to it. This is section 9.6.2 on page 32. It's talking about Kelly days, and our existing language, here in the highlighted yellow, the method of selection of Kelly days shall be that adopted in the department rules and regulations. We've had previous conversations about that those are now referred to as policies and procedures. So we would propose replacing the yellow highlighted language with the green highlighted policies and procedures as a cleanup. If that's not acceptable, we can. We've done that in other places. We just noticed this one and wanted to bring it forward.
So when they wrote it over here, they meant to write policy and correct. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, if you could
So
make
I'm
that change.
striking the yellow and leaving the green. Thank you. And then,
Dean, I just wanted to, just as we head off on this, because I think we're headed down a good path today, but I know you pointed out in two or three meetings how you just received language for things. I just wanted to remind everyone that on April 29th,
Mhm.
all of the proposals were exchanged. You're right, some of them had question marks, some of them had items that we just wanted to discuss as a city.
Mhm.
But we had indicated way back in April the
Mhm.
things we wanted to talk about. Some of them were just cleanup items. Many of these 60 items you talk about are just cleanup items, which I think it's prudent anytime we get together that we clean things up.
Mhm.
I also want to point out that the resolution does not require the city to give you proposals. So just in, for point of clarification, we set agendas to go through this document as you desired it, that would make most sense to you. And we spent 4 meetings talking about handbook, different items that were on our list a second time around, and provided wording on April 17th.
Mhm.
So we've provided wording on May 17th for everything except the economic items.
Mhm.
And we hadn't received any contract language wording on any of the 6 items that
Mhm.
we had. So,
Mhm.
I think it's going along well, but, and I think we're making progress, and I think the city is prepared to move as fast and as diligently as we possibly
Mhm.
can, because we would prefer to be done before impasse. But I just want to take exception to
Okay.
that we've drug out our conversations, because I think we've moved them forward as quickly as possible and
Okay.
discussed, been ready to discuss every
Mhm.
meeting. And I just think, I take exception to statements that we are not prepared or that we are dragging our feet,
Mhm.
because I don't think we are.
Okay.
Or similar things to dragging feet.
Mhm. Well, Lori, I didn't say that the city wasn't prepared or dragging their feet. Simply stating the fact that a proposal that says economic item, we don't know what that means, and so can't prepare ahead of time. So, whatever that is. But you're right, the topic, we understand that we're going to be discussing this as a topic.
Mhm.
And in regards to language, our 6 proposals are very direct, but it didn't include the language, as we've admitted to before. We were of the understanding that the language would be written collectively, and that's why we
That's
left it
fine.
off. And so, for future reference, we won't do that again. But it's why we did it. There's no question as to what our interest and proposal was. From April 16th, upon receipt, the city could have said yes or no to any of our things, whether we spoke to them or not. They were very clear. They weren't economic item or wish to discuss. They were very
Okay.
clear. But we appreciate where you're coming from, and we're here in good faith, and we're listening attentively. We're giving this all the, our time and energy, outside of these meetings. We should respect the effort that goes into this. And, are just as engaged now as we have been the entire time.
Well, good. And I look forward to continuing to make progress through the remainder of our meetings. And we are prepared to move as quickly through these as we possibly can for that.
Another highlighted one that came up, if we're ready to
Sure.
move on, was back on, Dean, I think you had originally, when we came back on the TA discussion, held back on 10.1.1, and we went back and looked, here it's on page 53, Health and Safety Program Team. And I think that I may have gotten lost, but that originally the holdup on that one was the union, because this was one where the original language said the city and the union, and we had proposed changing it to the IAFF. And so I didn't know if that one was still not a TA, or if that came under the umbrella of those ones.
Our
that we
intention was for that to become a TA.
A TA.
did. Okay, all right,
Yes, ma'am.
cool.
We just
Great, I
separated
just-
it, like I said, for,
For clarification.
yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
So the one that we have outstanding is the 9.24.
Of the
of
voluntary
the
demotion, because
PTAs.
it mentions an appendix.
Right.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, sounds good.
And that one, what page was that on?
Yeah.
Yeah, here, so here's how I left it. On 613, I was trying to type discuss, and then we came upstairs. Did discuss, but not TA. and I left it highlighted. Are we good with that? I just wanna make sure I'm accurately portraying our
Does
conversation,
that look right?
so that it's clear that we did not TA it today. Can we live with that, Ray, addition? And then we'll come back with the appendix. Is that what the holdup is on that one? That you just wanna see all the items in the appendix?
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
We require some additional discussion for the appendix itself,
Okay,
yes.
Sounds good.
Lord, if I could go back, just,
Mm-hmm.
you made a comment, I want to clarify. You made a mention that, per the resolution, the city didn't have to submit proposals.
I believe that's correct.
And for clarification, as I read this in resolution, section 6, there's a line that states, all proposals shall be reduced to writing and exchanged between the parties. Do you interpret that between the parties being us and the city?
During the negotiations, let me pull it out. Okay, where are you reading?
So it's section 6, discussion
Mhm.
procedures, and it is the 4th paragraph down there. I just bring this up as a discussion point. I view that language as both parties shall.
During discussions,
begin
yes,
discussion.
and
Okay.
we have.
Yes, I'm not saying that you have, I'm just saying you made the statement,
Yeah.
you didn't need to, and so I don't know if that.
Oh, we
means-
didn't need to do it ahead, like by the April 20 deadline or anytime
Okay,
by that April 20 deadline. The IAFF is required to do that, but the city is not required to have that list on, and we had it on the 29th. And thank you for moving the meeting on the 29th so that we were prepared to have the list for you. But, yes, I do think
Okay.
everything has to be exchanged and reduced to writing. So I think in the end, we've done that with each one of them as we've put, contract language in place. And I think we've done that for everything
and this is
now.
during the discussion process, not the
Right now.
final.
Right,
piece. It again later addresses the exchange of proposals in writing on July 1st. So this is during the discussion process. that it needs to be
Right.
submitted.
and
Okay.
we've been doing that, correct?
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Okay,
I went ahead and put and sorry, this is my scribbled on copy of the resolution, but I think that Lori's comments were in reference to the section A there that says, that the employee organization shall submit a letter of request to conduct discussions with the city towards the resolution of issues concerning wages and or fringe benefits and or working conditions to the Director of Administrative Services / City Clerk. The letter shall contain a specific list of issues and proposals to address and resolve those issues. Failure to submit the letter in accordance with the above shall result in the forfeiture of discussion for that year. Nowhere in that, I think, Lori's point was, does it talk about the city's
Okay.
obligation?
thank you, Casey. Okay. All that aside, we lost your screen now, Casey, up here.
Yeah,
There
it's
you go.
switching back.
Oh, thank you. All that aside, we're ready to start knocking through this for at least a half an hour, if we can. And do you want to just start at the beginning and start with each section and yes, no, on whether
Yes,
we
ma'am.
think we can discuss it quickly or not? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'll kick off the first one. I think on the cover page, and I think it's also another section down here on the length of the agreement, I think that would be of interest for the city to talk a little bit during our economic items, unless you are prepared to say something today on a length of agreement. We do not believe it's the low-hanging fruit, if you will.
So we're referring to cover page as the length of this, of agreement? Okay. No, ma'am, we don't consider it
Okay,
that either.
okay. And so the next one on page, well, don't have the right pages.
So the purposes of recording, do I need to put anything on here that as of this day, this is outstanding, or would that be helpful? Is that,
How would you like us to record these things?
It seems safe to assume that if it's blank, it still needs to be
Needs
addressed as
discussion.
pending, so.
Okay, we'll just leave it blank then. How does that sound? Okay, so the next one then is Article 1, Section 1.1.1. The city still would like to have the wording that is proposed. We believe it could be low-hanging fruit. We don't believe that there are a lot of material changes to it, and we'd like to know your thoughts on that.
Well, Laura, we agree, we don't believe that language change is necessary, however, the intent seems to be the same, so if it's important to the city to change that language, essentially rewrite the language, we can TA that right now.
Thank you. It is important, thank you.
And I'm gonna copy and paste the language from the city column over, correct?
Yes, that, Dean, do
So
you
the-
agree?
I'm sorry,
We're
Oh.
yes,
clear
ma'am.
that
Okay.
that's what is being TA'd. Thanks for helping me out.
The next one on the list is 2.1, duration, which not leave
Mhm.
for a later date. Okay, and the next section is Article 3, successors. We feel like this, again, feel like this rewording is something that the city continues to propose, but again, feels like it's something that we might be able to agree on fairly quickly as low-hanging fruit.
Or we could agree to this, if this term, all existing unwritten practices was removed.
So your proposal would be, this memorandum of understanding is the controlling document superseding all previous agreements and between the city and the IAFF, this would be another local 1596, and constitutes the entire memorandum between the parties pursuant Article 4 and Article 6, entire memorandum of understanding.
Yes, ma'am, so it would actually start with the word "and." I said all existing
Oh.
unwritten practices and all existing unwritten practices, but
Would you be willing to have us copy, as Casey apparently did right there, copy that over into proposed language by the IFF effective today, and allow us to gather a few of these up and caucus on it before saying yes?
oh, yes, ma'am, so that's our understanding of what we're doing right now.
Good.
But
Oh.
if we're just wanting to go through things where we're not, if there's just no change from us, we can do that, but if it's,
No,
but
no,
if
I
the
would
city wants
love-
to hear a small
Yes.
thing, then we'll do that now.
I would love to do
Okay.
that. That would be fantastic.
And we understand that will require some review from the city.
Okay,
I mean, we get
Thank-
it.
So I
Thank you.
added the date here in this column, Article 3, successors. And this is the IAFF column with the date and then the language. Is that the language, Dean, that you read? This memorandum of understanding is the controlling document superseding all previous agreements between the city and the IAF. I added local 1596 and constitutes the entire memorandum between the parties pursuant to Article 4 and Article 6, entire memorandum of understanding.
Yes,
Is that what
ma'am.
you said?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
okay. Okay, then the next one is Article 4, memorandum procedures. I would make the same statement.
So this is not something we can move to the TA right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Article 5.1. I would make that same statement for 5.1.
Okay. Lori, we can TA this one if we remove the last two paragraphs, so that begins with at notwithstanding on.
Notwithstanding the foregoing pursuant to Resolution 6817, the subject of negotiation shall not include enumerated management rights of Section 5. City retains exclusive right to unilaterally exercise the city's enumerated management rights without negotiation. If the city's willing to remove that section,
Then
Then
we
you
will
could
TA
TA?
the rest, yes, ma'am.
okay. Casey, did you catch that?
I think so, so it would stop after purpose of administering this memorandum. Okay, let me add the date up here. Okay, good of it.
Okay, and then I have 5.2.1. Is that one that we, sorry, still on an old copy. 5.2.1, I don't have a note at all on the city's position, so I guess we believe that this probably is not low-hanging fruit.
Okay,
Do you agree, or
Well,
anything you
it's-
want to say?
not low hanging for us.
Okay. 5.2.3, same thing. We did not feel like that was something we needed more discussion on.
Okay.
I think there's a numbering issue here, but we'll go back to that later. And then 5.2.4, again, we felt like that was one that you would probably want to have more discussion on. Am I on target?
Yes, ma'am, the city stands by the proposal to strike this from the, okay.
Okay, and then 5.2.5, I think that's one we resolved already, wasn't it, with
Yes,
the,
ma'am.
okay.
5.2.5, I'm copying and pasting over. Is that correct?
Yes, it's just changing the, or adding the local law. 1596 in that section.
So, how do we need the IAFF local 1596 president there? Just so we're consistent, is that how?
There's
I
three.
get the 9 and the 5 mixed up, I'm sorry. So, yeah, perfect. We do have somewhere where we have IAFF in parentheses, but if we want it every time, I'm fine either way.
I think we just write it the same way every time.
Okay,
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 in this particular.
whoops. IAFF local 1596, that's correct, right? Did I get them all? And then we're calling this TA. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, 5.2.6. We weren't quite sure how you felt about the city's proposed wording on this and didn't know whether that
Mhm.
was something that you're
Okay.
okay with or not. And-
Similar to some previous items, we have a requested change, and then we could TA
Okay,
this.
what would that
So-
change be,
so let's,
in addition to the IFF references?
Okay, so in the original language,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find this, let's see how far down it is. It's the sentence that says, "These periodic deductions shall continue at the same rate unless the treasurer of the union files a payroll deduction rate change to cover all employees." We want to include that sentence.
Oh, I see it here.
Mhm.
Do you see it, Casey, in the original wording?
And we want to exchange it for, up here. So in the city's proposed language, where it says the deduction will continue each pay period, think,
Hold on, I'm not
I
quite
think
there.
Casey's got it.
Oh,
It's here.
she's faster than I
Through
am.
through deduction, we want to remove that and replace it with the original language we just read.
So instead of, the deduction will continue each pay period at the same amount until the employee submits another signed authorization form, either to change the amount to be deducted or to discontinue the deduction. You're proposing striking that and replacing it with these periodic deductions shall continue at the same rate unless the treasurer of the union or,
Mm-hmm.
oh, darn it, I thought I had saved it. Files a payroll deduction rate change to cover all employees. Is that, maybe it would be
Maybe copy
clear, is it clearer if I copy this and
and put that language in there.
I just wasn't sure if that's what you guys were proposing.
Are you
That's the
proposing the
intent.
city language as
That's
long
the
as we
intent.
exchange those two sentences
Okay.
out?
Sorry,
Yes, ma'am.
redo.
Redo.
That's why it's a little hard to describe,
Whoopsie.
so.
I'm just gonna do that just to make it easier to read, I think.
Is that correct, basically? I mean, you can read through this tonight and we can,
We'll double check. We
Yeah.
understand trying to move
that-
stuff around. If we end up finding, you
okay,
know, corrections that need to be made, we get it, so.
okay, perfect.
This, any authorized deductions, is that part of what you're proposing to strike, or you're okay with that part? Starting back up with any authorized deductions, changes to deductions shall become effective the pay period following.
I think that's okay.
You're okay, okay. Okay, oh, let me put the date. Thank you for your patience with me. Keep editing is my,
I think this is
Weakness.
quite productive.
Lori, is this something that the city
Anything.
can TA?
I would like, any of the proposed language changes, I would like to be able to go back and review those and let you know at the beginning of the next meeting, if that's okay. Okay. Okay, so that takes us to 5.3?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The city continues to propose to strike the payroll deduction for the
Okay.
PAC.
I mean, it could be, we could TA that today if we just leave it as is.
Okay, so leave as is and strike, or where we're at with that.
Okay.
Let's put that, the PAC, are we okay with leaving the PAC?
Just leave it in the contract.
Let's bring it back for a conversation
Okay.
again. How's that? Okay, 5.4.
Lori, if you wanna caucus on that one really quick, we can. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I didn't know, but if we wanna caucus on that one, just a 5 minute, real quick, we can.
Let's keep rolling,
Okay.
but maybe we can right before we quit. Cause I didn't keep real good notes.
Okay.
How's that? Okay. 5.4.1. Oh, that was just a IAFF Local 1596. Casey, you got that one going?
Trying.
Can we TA that one? I have that for 5.4.1, 5.4.2, 5.4.3, and 5.5.6. that all of those are, that's just it, and that, Casey, we'll keep going, and
I think I got them all.
she's so fast. And then 5.5,
So I'm saying TA 61319.
oh, I skipped way to 5.6, sorry. 5.5.1, I did not have on our short list. I don't know if you did.
It would only be on our short list to not change the language.
Okay. We'll circle back around on that one. How's
I'm
that?
sorry, I'm not as fast as I thought. So,
Okay.
section 5.4.2, sorry to go back. If I change the IAFFs, was that a TA?
Yes. Dean, stop me if I'm wrong on any of that. And same with 5.2, 5.4.3.
I'm gonna change the first one, and then I'll go back and change the other ones, so I can keep up with everybody. Okay, sorry,
Okay.
thank you.
5.5, we're gonna save for another day. And 5.6, I think, is just that wording change from union to local 1596.
So TA, that one?
Yes. I have that in earlier notes. It's like- I thought that was gonna be my homework, but Casey, thank you for doing it.
Well, you still will have some, because I
I
can't
still
guarantee
have
I'm
some.
catching all.
Okay. Okay, I think the city skipped clear on down to Article 8. Between here, as far as low-hanging fruit, that we felt like all of the items in Article 6 and 7 might be things we want to come back to and discuss in depth. How do you feel about that? I mean, if there's anything there you're ready
I
to
mean,
tee on
if
city
it's not on the
language.
city's short list, that implies we're not open to much change, so, we understand that, we'll move on.
Okay, that sounds good. So, did you have any, the next number on my list was 8.8, 8.1.2. And I don't know if there's something that you would like to discuss between now and then.
So as a group, Laura, we've gotten through Article 7, so this was,
Yes.
so that's, no, I mean, as a,
Oh.
as local 1596.
Oh, okay, so you're ready to stop here?
So that's
Okay.
really as far as we've gotten.
That's fine, that sounds good. I think we've made good progress.
Okay.
We
Um,
tried to count up, I think we had counted 33 items that we had TA'd today before we came back from this most recent caucus. So with some additional ones, I feel like we've made a lot of progress, so appreciate that.
So it looks like we have a few places in here where we still want to substitute the union with IAFF Local 1596. We'll go ahead and do that and mark
Okay.
those as TA. And, Casey?
Sorry to be nitpicky, but I saw in one of our proposed language where we just said IAFF, is it okay if I go ahead and go in there and type local, modify our proposed
Mhm.
language to say local
Ye-
56?
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
We're good throughout the
Mhm.
document.
Yes, we get
I'm
it.
not putting it in the TA column, I just
Okay.
am updating our proposed language.
Okay, if we
Thank
do
you.
that throughout, is that
Mhm.
okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll continue to make these updates, and I'll send a new one out, and I might actually print one off for myself for the next meeting. And let's go back then, if you'd like, Dean, and let's have our conversation on the agenda on dates. You know what, we might need to caucus, because we haven't even discussed that yet on availability of dates
Okay.
to, possibly adding a date.
Dean was just mentioning, maybe before we talk this, and we want to clarify, because our intent on this is just to make sure that we're meeting the deadlines that were set forth in the resolution. And so when reading that, it talks about, section 6, again, parties shall on July 1st exchange their proposals. And impasse will begin on July 1st. So I guess, and then also then another date would be, if impasse continues to exist on July 3rd, the parties shall jointly request the services of the mediation conciliation service. Our intent is to make sure we meet those deadlines. So when you're having your discussion,
Okay.
we're gonna do the same thing. But I guess do you guys have a feeling on those deadlines? I know Casey had mentioned that, sometimes we can go beyond that date. You mentioned that the commission, the mayor wouldn't be able to sign until 2nd.
Well, yeah, I mean, unless we have an agreement to put on their agenda on the 18th, we don't have a commission meeting until July 2nd. So what I guess I was saying is, if we in this room have reached tentative agreement and the only thing that's required is ratification of the city commission and the membership of the IAFF, then I think that doesn't, to me, meet the definition of impasse.
Okay.
Okay.
But if at the end of June 29th, we aren't at a position to where we think it's just a matter of ratifying by the members then we are.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I'm not the end-all be-all, that's just how I thought it has always been, but
Okay.
I've only participated in this twice, so.
And so I guess the statement would be that by July 1st, each party needs to be comfortable that their ratification is likely to happen with everything that we have sitting in the right-hand column.
Yeah.
And if we're unsure, that possibly the city manager will need to speak with the ratifying group, which is the city commission for the city, and you would need to speak with your membership. Does that sound like a reasonable interpretation?
We could feel confident about something, but again, it is a vote, so.
And likewise.
They may surround us, so.
And likewise, but feeling fairly confident. So our goal should be to get done as soon as we can and feel fairly confident that when a vote's taken, it would be approved.
Is it possible for you all to schedule a meeting and provide your 7 days' notice and then cancel it? To where if is it possible? Just talking off the top of my head, I'm thinking we would post the agenda for the July 2nd meeting on the Thursday prior. And I'm not saying the agreement would have to be posted that day, but, maybe is there the ability for you all to have a special meeting on the 29th as the last possible time that you could go to your members to have that ratified, so that then on the 1st, we would know, and then it would go on an agenda on the 1st for the commission on the 2nd? I mean, maybe that's the kind of proposal that Tony's was
Mhm.
suggesting, that we both write down and
Mhm.
talk about next week.
That would be the proactive thing to do, because if
Okay.
we're ready for a vote, we've already got a meeting scheduled to have that. And if not, we can cancel and just keep working on it.
Keep going. And you said, okay, because I just got the calendar out. The city commission meeting's the July 9th,
Second?
July 2nd. Which one?
Yeah, July 2nd is the first commission meeting after July 1st.
Okay,
We don't have one after June 18th until July 2nd.
Will they meet that Tuesday with the holiday?
Yes.
That week?
so the city could conceivably get in front of the city commission on July 2nd or July 9th, is that what I hear? July
Correct.
2nd, so if we're at agreement, we can likely get it on there, and if that's the case, the best posting date, and you probably just said this, Casey, but I was pulling out my calendar, is the 27th.
I mean, again, that's when we post
Preferred.
the agenda, but we could post an agenda item, consider ratification of this agreement, and post
then
the
post the
agreement
agreement.
at 3:00 on July 2nd. I mean, if we need to meet up, if it takes you all that long to have your special meeting or whatever, if that makes sense.
So if we have a meeting scheduled for the 27th, and we all get done at 3:30, and we say, hut, done deal, we got TAs on everything, and you have a meeting scheduled, and we can put a placeholder on the city commission agenda, and we could know then by July 2nd, that could be like a perfect world.
Yes, ma'am?
Our hope is to have a special meeting on July I'm sorry, June 28th is what we were looking at.
is what you'd really like. So we'd really like to have,
So that allows us to work.
you would really like to schedule a meeting for the 28th. We would like to all be done by the 27th. That would be our goal. I think that's a good goal. I don't want to, as I previously stated, don't want to take the 29th off our tentative calendar, because if we need it, okay, I tend to schedule my days off the minute I know I have a day off. So I would rather keep it on the calendar just to keep me from scheduling anything on top of it, as a tentative date. Do you want to make it? That gives us, after today, 1, 2, 3 scheduled dates that are for sure scheduled, and a tentative date that we had on for the 22nd. Already, that was, do we want to make that not tentative? And that's a Saturday, folks. Do we want to make it not tentative? You're out of town. Jill cannot be here.
The 20, 22, and 27 are also 8-hour days, correct? And so more work can get done, and
Yeah, 20, yeah, I
Yeah,
have
no, it's
June, so I have 2 hours next Tuesday,
Mhm.
and then the 20th, 9:30 to 3:30, so that's 8 hours, and the 22nd, 9 to 3, what did I say? 9:30 to 3:30 and 9:30 to 3:30 on the 22nd, and 9:30 to 3:30 on the 27th. I don't know, do you want to make 22nd firm, or do you want to hold it tentative, or do you want us to look at one of those other 4 dates that you had mentioned earlier in the meeting, 17th, 19th, 24th, and 26th?
we have those dates on our calendar and intend to be available. We're okay with the city keeping that as a tentative, and, status, if that
And just-
works. I mean, we're gonna be available regardless, so.
Okay. Shall we caucus for 5 minutes and see if we want to add an extra date, or firm up the 22nd?
We'll talk, and we'll check maybe personal calendars, just to make sure we're, I'm not speaking for
Speaking out of
somebody,
turn.
and,
And, okay, let's do that.
okay.
And
What
then
were the 4 days we needed to check?
we need to check June 17th, 19th, 24th, and 26th.
Okay.
And then, for the next agenda, are we good with continuing like we are right now? And if we get to the bottom, go back to the top and hit the harder to discuss items?
It seems to be working.
Yes.
You guys think so? James, Jason?
We'll just roll through once and then come back and hit the harder topic second.
Okay.
How does that sound? We'll call them harder topics,
Look forward
low-hanging
to it.
fruit and harder topics.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we're taking 5 minutes and then coming back? Or-
5 minutes, we consult each other on scheduling, and
Mhm.
then, okay.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Is everybody ready?
Yes.
Okay, ready, Kurt? Okay, thank you for the time. I think we checked everybody's calendars. Our first preference would be to schedule a meeting for the 26th, all day, 9:30 to 3:30.
I can make it work.
Okay. Will the 29th remain tentative?
Yeah, what I would like to do, because to
Mhm.
make sure nobody schedules over it,
Mm-hmm.
is schedule a meeting for the 26th, 9:30 to 3:30, and keep the 22nd and the 29th tentative.
Mm-hmm.
And next Thursday, on the 20th, we can decide if the 22nd is necessary, based on our progress. And then we can know whether the 29th is necessary, because if we're done by the 27th, we will all be happy, right?
Yes.
He doesn't say happy. We will all be
We'll
what,
be done.
Dean?
You're not
We'll be
on the
done.
26th, right? That's your week, okay. But yours by Zoom potential.
Yes, if need be,
I'll put it on
What? So June 26th, 9:30 to 3:30. So let me just, and Jill will not be here. We checked Tom's and Tony's calendars while we were there, so I think we're good all the way through there. Okay, so we have a meeting next Tuesday, the 18th, from 9:30 to 11:30. And Sean indicated that he would be here, so I'm going to remove that absence from the calendar. And then we have one scheduled June 20th from 9:30 to 3:30. And again, Sean said he was going to be here next week, so I'll take that off of the calendar. Then we have a tentative for June 22nd, 9:30 to 3:30, with Jill by Zoom. Then we just scheduled one for June 26th, 9:30 to 3:30, Jill by Zoom. And we have a meeting scheduled June 27th, 9:30 to 3:30, Jill by Zoom. And we have June 29th, 9:30 to 3:30, tentative. That sound right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Real quick, Chief
Mhm.
Coffee, is Jason Williams able to get coverage to attend on that white
Okay.
shift day?
On the 26th, we'll make sure he has coverage available to him.
Thank you.
Lori, this one I have up here, match your notes.
Hold on.
It's all right, I can make it bigger.
And June 27th, 9:30. Yes, that's what I have. Is that what you have, Dean? Oh,
Sorry, I didn't look.
that's
Oh.
okay. It's what I have.
Okay.
Is
They
that
were
right?
good. They were
Okay.
good. I was updating our calendar.
That's all right. Okay, okay to adjourn?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.